gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. The rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check his stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask. I just really hit the field. 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 Boy, I'm about to hit the field.
And we're back with another episode of the Hitting the Field podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Brener, here. And today we have NBA basketball back on the schedule. So we're going to take a deep dive into what to expect for the second half of the NBA season. And sitting here with me are two people who look very lost and very confused, like they've never done a Hitting the Field podcast before, because they haven't. So come on closer, come closer, come closer. You guys get that mic. To my far right, we have Mr. Nick Geddes making his HTF debut. Nick, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, like Jeremy said, I'm Nick Geddes. I just transferred here to UCF, so I'm very new to what's going on around here. And I'm from Tampa, Florida, so I'm kind of familiar with the area. So it's been a pretty cool transition, and I'm looking forward to getting involved and at this point, getting out of here, too.
Yeah. You just got here, though. You just got here.
Well, it'd be good to graduate. And
it'd be nice. It'd be nice, but if you're gonna be here, you might as well enjoy it, right? All right, and then joining me making his podcast debut, Mr. Okelo Pena.
Yes, sir.
Okelo, how's it going, brother?
I'm feeling pretty good, Jeremy. Obviously, after Monday's show, I know there's still a lot of basketball I feel like we're gonna dive into today. Just so much. I'm just very excited and very happy to be here.
Yeah, so we ended Monday's NBA segment off with who we believed was going to win the conferences, and that's where we're going to kick off today. Obviously, today, Thursday, February 20th. I get lost when it's when it gets to this part of the month.
You're on track.
February 20th. All right. So when it gets to this time of the year, about 30 games left. We're still a bit unsure, but it's a good time to speculate. It's a good time to really, figure out who's it gonna be. So, let's start east. We're on the East Coast. Let's start east.
Fair.
So the Bucks sit 46-8, top of the East right now, but they also have one of the more difficult schedules left in the NBA. They got to play Toronto a couple times. They got to play Boston a couple times. And look, Milwaukee's got the best record in the league. There's no question about it. But Nick, does that mean they're the best team in the league right
Absolutely
now?
not.
Absolutely not.
Because the regular
Why?
season is devalued in the NBA. It doesn't mean as much. When you get to the playoffs, it's a different animal, and that's why I don't believe in Milwaukee to win everything, the whole thing. But yes, in the East, I have to say they are the favorites. But that does not mean that they're exactly title contenders, because we saw it last year when Giannis went against Toronto.
So they're not even a contender?
I don't think so.
They're not a contender.
To win the title.
But Nick, you're saying when you said the regular season doesn't matter. I mean, to me, it does matter. I mean, the Bucks want to get home court advantage throughout the playoffs, and that's going to be essentially helpful to you, especially when you want to just run the table. You need your home fans right behind you. It's a big advantage.
Let me just. Nick, I'm gonna give you a chance here to define what you believe is a contender, because I think your definition of a contender might be a little bit different from mine. So I want to give you the chance to explain to you what a contender is.
I want to see 2 to 3 stars on a contending team.
Okay.
Unless your name's LeBron James, because you can carry a team.
Okay.
And I think
Giannis,
I think Giannis is a star, obviously.
Okay, that's
but
one.
Watching him last year in the playoffs, I didn't like what I saw against Toronto.
Okay.
He was muchly neutralized from that game, from that
fair.
series.
That's fair.
I like Chris Middleton. There's nothing wrong with him. But after that, I know they have depth, but I'm lacking a third star.
So you're concerned.
I'm concerned for that, because if Giannis gets neutralized, I don't know how many of these guys can step up in the playoffs.
So if not Milwaukee, then who? Who scares you on the path for Milwaukee?
I think it's Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
No,
I'm not buying.
Philadelphia.
I can't buy in.
Whoa.
I can't buy into all this
Whoa.
the rift between Simmons and Embiid. I think that they'll be fine.
Yo,
I hate to turn into Dwight from The
Philadelphia.
Office, but that's false. I think if you want to talk about, Jeremy, a real contending team in the Eastern Conference who could probably nip at Milwaukee's side, I look at the Miami Heat, especially after all the moves. You're looking at me like I'm crazy with the Miami Heat. You get Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder at the deadline. You bulked up your roster. You have shooters with Tyler Herro, Kendrick Nunn. You have Jimmy Butler on the roster. Like, Miami has made everything that they need to, if not to be an Eastern Conference finalist, let alone a contender.
So, but
for the chip.
okay, Lo, is the Heat the answer to defeating the Bucks?
I think
Can
so.
the Heat beat the Bucks?
I think so. You give
because
them
they have the outside shooting for it.
Not even that. I think you get Jimmy Butler and Giannis one-on-one, and we all know how great Jimmy Butler's defense is.
Okay.
And, you got Bam Adebayo, one of the most improved players across the board. He can guard up against Chris Middleton. The Heat have the depth, and they have the two-way guys that can go in to and from around the perimeter, around the paint, that you need to stop the Milwaukee Bucks.
But do you think that, like, the thing with the Heat, you do bring up some good points with, they do have the pieces that I think can contain Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. But will their lack of experience hurt them? Because that's a very young team.
But you have Jimmy Butler, who's a very experienced, well-seasoned guy he's been to the dance before, Jeremy.
That's true. But also you got Kendrick Nunn, who hasn't been to the dance before. Tyler Herro, never been to the dance before. Duncan Robinson hasn't played a full NBA season yet. Those are three of your most... That's your guards. Those are your three guards.
No, that is true, Jeremy. But the beauty about the NBA playoffs is that this is where careers are made.
Tell that to Giannis, who lost last year.
But that's the development of the process. It's
so is
amazing.
the development of the process something that needs to happen for Miami or before they get there?
They need to... Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Herro need to step up their game. They were hot at the beginning of the season, and they fell a little bit cold. And, obviously being rookies... getting to a big stage like this, it is going to be overwhelming, and they're going to have to journey through some difficulties. But that's the beauty of having a 7-game series, and as well as if you look at where Miami could eventually fall up, you never know if they can be the second seed, they could be the third seed, having that home court advantage in AAA. It could be a big boost to them, and I feel like they're well enough seasoned with the core that they can. And you have Andre Iguodala, who's won chips before.
Who also hasn't played more than 3 games this season.
Okay, but
I don't see the value. Andre Iguodala, he's been in a lot of big games. He's won a lot of championships.
he's a Finals MVP.
Yeah, like you said, how many games has he played this year?
Okay, but we've had guys.
How old is he?
Okay, Lo,
I don't know the impact is there.
You're a Heat guy. I feel. Mm-hmm. Is this the correct assumption?
Well, I mean Denver Nuggets, but being from South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area.
So, the Heat. How big was this Iguodala acquisition, and is it the best midseason acquisition in the NBA?
It's really hard-pressed for me to say. I think, personally, it was one of the biggest moves, and I think, especially for a playoff team, it was a move that got a lot of jolt back home, because it's like, you got a seasoned guy, excuse me, who's been there before, and, Miami had to shut off some dead weight, with Dion Waiters, and then the surprise of it to me was Justice Winslow, but he was more of a rotation piece than a necessary piece. I feel like Iguodala coming in, he's that vital, necessary piece who brings in experience. He can bounce off the chemistry with Jimmy Butler, feed him, and do what he needs to do with the other rotation, and they got it.
Yeah, to me, here's the thing with me. I feel like Miami, they are contenders this year, and I feel like if my definition of a contender is, can I see that team in the NBA championship? Can I see them hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy at the end of the year? And I say yes for the Bucks. I say yes for the Raptors. I say yes for the Celtics. I say yes to the Heat. And the Sixers... Sell me on that, Nick. Sell me on why the Sixers are a contender.
I see the Pacers
I
before
think
the Sixers.
I think last year against the NBA champions, it was Toronto. If you look at that series, Philly was neck and neck with them.
Yeah,
and it took a Kawhi buzzer beater to end it.
But they also had Jimmy.
And they did have. I know they had Jimmy Butler.
That's a different team.
Yeah, it is a different team, but I still believe in them. And I don't, like I said, I don't believe in the rift between Simmons and Embiid. And I think that Joel Embiid will show up in the playoffs. I think Simmons will show up. I think Tobias Harris is the X factor there. And I just think that it's so wide open. I'm putting them in that contending status because I don't really know what I have in Miami, because I like Jimmy Butler and he's a good piece. I don't buy him as a 1 on an NBA championship team.
Here's one of the most bizarre teams in the league, and this is what I'll say. This is why it's so important for Philadelphia to jump up further from where they are. Philly is 34-21 on the season at home. 25-2 at home.
Best home record.
Best home record
Yes.
in the league. In the league.
Only behind my Nuggets, but
Yeah, 25-2 is the best record in the league for the Nuggets are 21-7. They're not close to that.
we're so.
No, they're not close to that. No, Caleb, don't even say it.
I tried.
The Heat are 22-3. They're right there with them. So that 4-5 matchup, what's currently set is Heat Sixers, the two best teams at home in the East. That's going to be a huge matchup. Whoever gets home court, they could possibly win that series.
Yeah, and
it could be a 7-game series.
It is worrisome for Philly that they cannot find a way to win on the road. And I think a lot
So
of
how do you fix that? How do you fix that at this point in the season? Because at this point in the season is when teams are have all their pieces, and you have to put your best basketball together so that in the playoffs you can match that. What does Philly need to do in order to turn the page? Because that's been the problem the whole season with Philly, is they haven't had a chance. They haven't had the luck or the skill or whatever. There's something missing. What is missing from this Philly team to put them on contender status that you think they'll be able to resolve before playoff time?
I think focus. They must not be focused enough. At least that's what I see on the road. Because how can you? I understand home field advantage is a thing, but how in the world can it be this bad, or this bad on the road? How much can it be of a difference? It has to be focus. I don't know what's going on the plane
So do you
rides on
think
the way
it's
there.
more
I don't
like-
know what's going on.
Do you think it's more like they have is it more of what they're doing is fine, they're just not executing it properly, or is it more they need to change something in their plan? Because recently they've right before the All-Star break they were playing with that starting lineup. They were putting Horford in, putting Horford out, Korkmaz in, Korkmaz out. So do they need to fix something in their game plan, or do they just need to execute the game plan better?
They got to execute better. Listen, that offense is going to run through Embiid and it's going to run through Simmons. Nothing's going to change that. I'd like to see Ben Simmons be a little bit more aggressive getting to the rim, because, listen, when he gets to the rim, I think he's a really good finisher. And for some reason, he's just hell-bent on passing the ball more. And there's nothing wrong with that. He is a point guard, but you have to use your skills to your advantage. And I think that we need to see that down the stretch out of Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
My advice: just develop a jump shot. Can we see it more, please?
That's my problem with Ben Simmons.
The thing is, though, is they're not going to get a Ben Simmons jump shot in these 30 games.
At this point, he is what he is.
Yeah.
How long are we going to wait for Ben Simmons to develop a jump shot?
But like you mentioned, Nick, this team look, yes, it's a different team, but the core of the team went 7 games with the NBA champions last year. I think peak Philly is the second best team in the East. Behind Milwaukee. I think that peak Philly is better than peak Boston. I think peak Philly is better than peak Toronto, and I think peak Philly is better than peak Miami. I think their ceiling is higher than any team other than Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is the highest ceiling out of anybody.
That's fair.
And I think that's where they're playing at right now. Milwaukee's playing at their ceiling. I don't think you're going to see much better than what we've got out of out of Milwaukee. And you know what? It might be enough. It might not be enough, because one of these teams might, jump the hurdle, and Milwaukee might digress because that's what happened last year, and they might need more growth in that department. But we'll see. I mean, what are you thinking, Okelo? I know you got stuff on your mind.
Look, I think Milwaukee has enough as it is. That you're right. I think that it is their ceiling. Could they extend it? It's a little tough, but I think when you said peak Philadelphia, high, I could see it maybe being the Raptors, because with their rotation, they got good players. They got hot with a win streak. I feel they might get cold, but the fact that you said over Boston and Miami, especially the Celtics, because I look at that Celtics team, and I'm not really sold on yet a Brad Stevens coached playoff team to go maybe that deep, but I feel like they do have
A Brad Stevens coach team went to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
That is
With
true,
Isaiah
but
Thomas
with
as the star.
Yep.
yeah, but like, look, imagine what if they had Kyrie Irving throughout the entire playoff
They
series.
would
a
not
couple
have
years.
been well.
Kyrie Irving's
look,
a cancer.
the non-Kyrie Celtics were better than the Kyrie Celtics.
So you think now that they have Kemba Walker in there now, Jason
Kemba's a better
Tatum,
He fits very well.
No,
And
he fits Brad Stevens' system perfectly, but it's
Kemba's
just,
a better fit because he makes the players around him better.
I think Boston is, like, we haven't talked much about
We
Boston
haven't,
on the
yeah.
podcast. I think they're the big sleeper. They're sitting right there at third. They've kind of been just coasting along. Without Kyrie, the drama's not there anymore.
That is
Kimba's
true.
having his stats are not as good as they were in Charlotte,
my
but he's
problem
having a
with
career
Boston.
year. He's really having a really good year.
Here's
but
my problem with
I'm-
Boston.
you want to check Jeremy? Because
I have
I'm
a
just going to
problem
say.
with Boston. I want to see if it's if we're thinking on the same wavelength here.
Okay, I'll start off by saying they need help with the big man issue.
Thank you.
So we
Yes.
did agree. They need a center, and Ennis
Yes.
Cantor is not that
Ennis
guy.
Cantor cannot
A
play
liability
defense.
on defense.
He should not be in that.
Where
playoff
was
rotation.
where's Ennis Cantor playoff from Portland?
No,
I haven't seen it.
No, he's not. Like he shouldn't. He should not be in the playoffs. Ennis Cantor's not a playoff center. He's
problem.
not. He's not.
But he did help for Jurkic when he was injured for
He
Portland.
did. I don't know how much of that it was Myers Leonard versus Cantor, but
Yeah, and I want to see Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in the playoffs. I want to
Yes.
now that Tatum and Brown are having career years.
This
I want
is
to
the
see if
best
they're going
we've
to
seen
build
the two of
onto
them.
that.
I
Yeah.
thought losing Terry Rozier would really hurt their depth in rotation, but it seems like they're even doing better without Scary
no,
Terry.
they have Kemba, and Kemba's eclipsed what Rozier's production was, and possibly even surpassed it. Definitely surpassed it. Yeah, no, for sure. But I think, yeah, I mean, look, the thing with Boston is like they play very similar to the Rockets in regards they play very small, and not a lot of people notice that. Daniel Tice is only 6'8". Like, I think people forget how, like, Daniel Tice plays like he's 7 foot, but he's only 6'8". And my thing is, in the Eastern Conference, when you have teams like Milwaukee, the longest team in the league, Philly, team that plays pretty much all their guys taller than 6'8", and you have, Miami, who also plays a lot of bigs.
Bam Adebayo.
That's going to be
Yeah,
difficult.
I can see Bam Adebayo bullying Enes Kanter.
Exactly.
All series long
There,
should they match up.
there's like, if they can, like, there's an easy matchup to exploit when you play Boston, and if you can exploit it, you win the game. So that's my concern with Boston, is they just, and the thing is, when you are exploiting the big matchup, usually you have someone like Tatum or Brown or Kemba save the day. But in the playoffs, is that going to be enough? And I don't believe it will in a 7-game series.
I mean, currently they're matched up against Indiana. Are we not sure Indiana could give them a run for the money? If
Well-
Oladipo can get healthy, like, back to form real quick, because Sabonis has turned a corner.
Indiana can win a
Brogdon
playoff
can
series.
play.
My question is, though, if Sabonis and Oladipo are hot, can Miles Turner as well bounce off that synergy that they
Indiana
have?
can win a playoff series. They can win a playoff series. They cannot win two.
Oh, yeah, I don't see it happening,
win
but I'm
two.
saying
I love
against
Victor
Boston,
Oladipo so
Sabonis
much,
versus
though.
Kanter. I'm exploiting that.
Yeah, definitely nothing against Oladipo, and I don't even think it's a matter of health with Oladipo. I just think that if I look at the teams in the East, Pacers are distant.
Well,
fifth,
Jeremy,
sixth.
think about this last year before Oladipo had his injury. The Pacers were the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
Think about if he didn't
that team
get
is
hurt.
also very different this year.
That is true, but
If
I mean
he
they
didn't
added
get
Malcolm
hurt-
Brogdon in free agency.
If he
If
didn't
that
get
doesn't
hurt,
help,
if he didn't get hurt, I still don't think that team makes it to the conference finals.
not even what?
No.
Really?
No, yeah, I still think that Milwaukee was better. I think that Philly was better.
I don't-
I think that
I talk a lot about
Toronto
who's
is
your
better?
best player. Victor Oladipo, the best player on a championship team, and it's just
look
not happening.
when it comes
He's
down
a
to
shooter and a scorer, and he can play both
so is
ways.
Kawhi, so is Kawhi.
yeah, I can't.
So
buy
like
that.
the Sixers were at their peak and they were better than the Pacers
But that's
were.
Kawhi Leonard, Jeremy. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, it is Kawhi.
so
Leonard.
eventually he was going to run into that roadblock.
That's the same problem the Pacers have this year. They're gonna run into a roadblock they simply cannot conquer. And look, if the Pacers can win 2 playoff series, they can't win a third.
It'll be
They
too
can't
good
win
to
a
be true.
third. It is too good to be true. And
I would love to see it, though.
look, it would be a great story, but they're not there yet. They're not there yet. They need someone else. They need one more piece. I hate to say it. because it's like you ask Indiana. Like Indiana did everything they possibly could. I don't think Indiana could have done much more to improve that team this year. They got Brogdon, they got Jeremy Lamb, they got T.J. Warren, they got those guys, and they did. And it's a great job what McMillan's done, but it's still not enough. It's still not enough.
I think like
they need one more piece.
I agree, but I just feel like maybe I can understand this year because Oladipo got back late, but I feel like if we look maybe just ahead toward next year, they could be a championship contender, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, but we're talking about this year though.
It would be hard to sell me, but I would just love to see like Victor Oladipo make some amazing stuff happen in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure.
So
but it's just not going to happen this year.
Are we all on? What do we feel about the Nets though? Kyrie Irving coming back. We're all in agreement.
No,
That's not working.
Look,
Kyrie's out indefinitely though.
Yeah, I don't
look at this point.
The Nets, it's like
Nets are a next year thing. Pacers are a next year thing.
Mm-hmm.
This year, the thing is, look, the Bucks are playing for this year, and that to me is why I think the Bucks are winning this East. Yeah. Because this is the thing: Giannis is a free agent at 21. They keep bringing it up, and he never will commit 100%. If I don't have 100% commitment from Giannis, I can't guarantee. There's no guarantee that Giannis is going to be there after the following season. So the Bucks are playing to win now.
Yeah,
they need to win now. Their window is tightening, and other teams like Philly, they still have some time. Miami has the largest window of anybody. Celtics have a large window as well with Brown and Tatum. So I feel like the tightest window right here belongs to Milwaukee, and I think that's why Milwaukee capitalizes now.
Yeah, and I would say that, like how I said how Giannis got neutralized last year, it's a credit to him because he has really improved his outside shooting. Sure. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll be a weapon for him.
Because I think what happened was when Brogdon goes to Indiana, you need someone to fill that void, and they've done that with Korver, with Giannis, with Middleton even. Like they have those guys that can play that game as well. They've replaced that by committee, and they like even in the playoffs that basketball is going to translate because they don't play a lot of basketball. There are nights where they'll take the fourth quarter off. Like they're winning these games, but they're not just winning these games. They're winning these games by a lot. A lot.
Giannis is dropping 37.
They are clearly the best team. And look, yes, maybe the schedule hasn't been, has been on their side a bit favorable for them. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, you still got to play everybody. And they're 6.5 games ahead of any team in the East right now. They have a cushion. So even if they lose all 3 games to Toronto, they're still number one. Like it's still. I mean, and maybe that will, smear the mindset that they are the best team in the East. But at the end of the day, like as of right now, what I'm seeing right before the second half of the season, you got Milwaukee at the top.
I won't lie to you. I can't disagree with you, Jeremy. But like I'm saying, I'm still looking at Miami as a potential dethroners to their championship team. So
they will have tests. They will have tests. Absolutely. Yeah. Miami is a test. Boston is a test. Toronto will be a test. But right now, Milwaukee has. Here's the way I see it.
Why are you sold on the Raptors, though? I'm just curious. Not to disrespect what they've done this season. What they've done without Kawhi has been phenomenal. But do you think in a 6-7 game you can count on Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Serge Ibaka, and those guys to really give a good run for the money?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I have them as a second-round exit.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I think that why they would much rather have Kawhi Leonard on that team. His absence has made a lot of guys step up.
Yes.
Serge Ibaka is playing the best basketball I've seen him play since the Thunder days.
Yes, yes.
True. Career renaissance for Serge
Gasol.
Ibaka.
Gasol's been hurt, too.
Yeah, and Gasol,
so that's why Ibaka's had a lot of time.
Yeah, and Siakam obviously has become a star. Mm-hmm. Van Fleet, I like. How can you not like Fred VanVleet?
That's a future All-Star right there.
Yeah,
Norman Powell as well. I'll admit he's really stepped up his game this year.
A lot of people like to make jokes of
they're built like Miami and Milwaukee, and the fact that they're so deep.
A lot of guys like to make jokes about Kyle Lowry too. Guy can play. I'm so tired of the slander. He can play.
No, he can. I'll admit, though, the absence of not having DeMar DeRozan has hurt his game somewhat, but he's still producing.
I mean, yeah. But at this point, Kyle Lowry's not there to play hero ball. And he's there to play for the team. And he got the ring. So, and he might go get another one. But, I mean.
Time will tell.
Look, You can't look at me in the face right now and tell me that Toronto does not have a chance right now. You can't, and you're trying to do it, and you can't.
There's still so many question marks.
There are. Look, and the thing is, look, there's a lot of questions for everybody. There's a lot of questions for Miami. There's a lot of questions for Toronto, Boston, even Milwaukee.
And that's why it's so wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has questions. So that's why when I say Philly, I say that because, like you said, their ceiling is greater than all these teams in front of them.
Yes.
So I'm banking on them hitting their ceiling in the playoffs, but we'll see.
But what I will say is Milwaukee, like, if every team is on their A game, if every team is playing at their ceiling, the best team is Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's a very big coaching also, I think, matters in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Mike Budenholzer, I think, has an upper hand on Brett Brown all day. We could argue Brett Brown is the biggest liability for the Sixers.
Well, I mean, especially for Budenholzer, he's a Greg Popovich disciple. So you already know he knows what it takes to win.
Yes. All right, let's move on out west now to the Western Conference.
Oh, man.
So we currently sit right now, although it's very similar to the East in the fact that it's a very tight race in the middle and with a slight cushion between 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Lakers currently hold a 4-game lead over the Denver Nuggets. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is the Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks are the 2-7 matchup right now, but only 5 games separate those two teams. Mm-hmm. It's a very tight-knit Western Conference.
Yeah.
So, are the Lakers the team to beat in the West? Okelo answered this question on the show on Monday, and I'll give him a chance to explain further because he didn't get a whole lot of time to talk about it. But Nick, I'll let you answer this question now. The Lakers team to beat, yes or no?
I think so.
Okay.
LeBron is playing out of his mind.
Yes, he is.
He's playing out of his mind. He adds Anthony Davis.
Yes, he is.
And to me, I said, I want stars. There's your stars. And to me, they don't even need a third star because they have those two, and that just outweighs it. And I'm concerned, my only concern for them, I'll say this. I would have traded Kyle Kuzma because I'm not relying on Kyle Kuzma as my third best player in the playoffs. I will say that. Mm-hmm. But the only way it works is the only reason why it works is because LeBron is your best player, and he can drag and get the best out of players.
Right.
But I will be skeptic. Should Kyle Kuzma have to do anything in this series, I don't know what I'm going to get out of him.
Yeah. Do the Lakers have the highest ceiling right now?
Could be the Clippers.
I think it's
if
the
Paul
Clippers.
George can. Paul George has been playing bad basketball right now. There's no way around it. But I like Paul George in the playoffs. How can you not like Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs? Marcus Morris, that's a big time acquisition at this time of the year. Montrezl Harrell, good player. Lou Williams off the bench. Patrick Beverley's a gritty player.
Yeah. He's
going to get inside people's heads. That's what he's there to do. I mean, you have to like the Clippers team. I think it's neck and neck between those two teams.
I think, look, if the Clippers... Here's the thing with the Clippers. They have not played the best basketball they possibly could have. They're not playing at their ceiling. Yet they're number 3 in the West.
No.
Despite not playing at their top potential. But for me, if I have not seen this team at their top potential. Versus in the East, I've seen Milwaukee at their top potential. I've seen, those teams. I've seen Philly at their top potential. So I can expect. But because this Clippers team is so new with Paul George, with Kawhi Leonard, they both had never played for the Clippers before the year. I'm still not sold yet. I'm not. I do think that if every team is playing at their absolute A game, the Clippers are the best team in the West, 100%. But I'm not sold yet. And I don't know what they need to do in order to sell me other than just playing their A game. And if we haven't seen their A game yet, maybe we have. Maybe we have seen their best basketball. And if we've seen their best basketball, they're not coming out the West.
So Christmas Day, Lakers Clippers didn't sell you.
That might have been their best basketball game of the season. But then when I see you go and lose to the Timberwolves by 25, when they hadn't won in a month, that's concerning. That's concerning.
There's many nights I look at the Clippers. I look at the scores around the league, and I'll be watching the Clippers, and I'm just sitting here telling myself, man, this team, I don't understand.
And they lose games to teams that, they lost to Boston right before the All-Star break. Like
But that was a good overtime.
it
game.
it was, but I mean, like you should win that game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, don't make light of it, really. Like, we crucify Philly for losing games in the regular season. I mean, every time LeBron loses a game in the regular season, the world's ending.
Yes.
I think everybody has that cushion with Kawhi because we were just waiting, just wait till playoff Kawhi. And I kind of feel that way, too. Like, I mean, I said the regular season's devalued, but it does matter, I think, seeding. And
I don't know if seeding and I mentioned this on the last podcast. How are the Clippers going to get out of the West when they have to play 7 games on the road? And by that, I mean, how are they going to play and win a series when you play the Lakers in the playoffs? Because at that point, like, I don't care if it's a Clippers game. I don't care if it's game 3 at home against the Clippers. All 7 of those games are played at Staples Center. Who owns the Staples Center? The Lakers. You're playing a game, like, it's very hard to win in the playoffs.
It's a little
but
brother,
it's very
big
hard
brother.
to win on the road in the playoffs. And you got to play 7 games in a stadium that should belong to you? But it's all road games. I don't know how that has to affect the team in some regard. And we've never really even seen a series like that before because the Clippers and the Lakers have never been at their peak at the right time. I'm sure the Clippers and Lakers probably played in the playoffs once before, but look, yeah, the Clippers have beaten the Lakers in LA this year, Christmas Day. That was example, Exhibit A.
Opening night.
But can they do that for 7 games? And I don't know. And look, this is the fear of the unknown. I really have no idea how this is going to work out. Ideally, the Clippers will have the best ceiling, have the highest ceiling in the West. In the league. The Clippers could win this NBA championship, and I would not be surprised. Nothing would surprise me at this point, honestly, except maybe the Sixers winning the title. But
I can say what would surprise me, and I think Okelo over here is going to bring it up, is
That
the
would
Denver
also-
Nuggets.
that would also
making
surprise
noise
me
in
at
the
this point.
playoffs.
All right.
The Nuggets surprising you guys? Oh, my God.
All right, Kayla. We're gonna touch that play button from Monday. You got to talk about it a little bit, but I want you to go more in depth and sell us on why the Denver Nuggets are getting out of the Western Conference this year.
Well, I think, first off, Jeremy, you look at most of the teams and in the entire NBA league, Nuggets didn't make much or many or any roster changes. They kept the same core from last year, and I think having that core experience from last year's postseason where nobody, not even myself included, like, I had us going to the playoffs, but I never would have thunk we would have gotten the 2 seed. We played a dang good series against the Spurs, and had Jamal Murray not lost his shoe, had we had not, unfortunately, had a playoff collapse in the final 2 minutes against Portland, we would have been in the Western Conference Finals. That would have made me purely zealous that we would have had it. This year, I'm so excited about this team potentially going to the championship because I feel the Joker is going to be at his best. He proved that his first playoff, he's a playoff player. He was Mr. Triple-Double almost every night, if I can remember correctly. And then Jamal Murray on the wing. You have Will Barton, Gary Harris. We have now our secret weapon, Michael Porter Jr., coming off the bench, averaging 17, 22 points per game. I'm sold on Denver. The reason, I'm questionable about the Lakers, but I feel like the only team that scares me is the Clippers, is because they have the depth. So it's about depth versus depth. Pound for pound, I potentially think we could beat the Lakers regardless of LeBron or AD because, like I said, LeBron can play so many minutes, but it's going to come down to those final minutes. He's going to get tired. He's going to he's 35 now. The same LeBron James
But you got AD. You got AD.
I don't know though, but we can
Had a
still
whole playoffs off
Playoff
last
AD.
year too.
But that's going to be their
Who's
first
also
year
a great player in the playoffs.
But that's going to be their first time together in the playoffs. It's different when your chemistry matches in the regular season.
So-
come time for the playoffs, look at what Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic did in their first playoff.
So development in the playoffs it matters in the West, but doesn't matter in the East when it's Miami.
It's just I don't know. It's just I get a strange feeling from Miami, these guys can always do something, or their number's going to get called.
All right, so talk me through this. So let's just say the seeding is exactly how it is as we go into the playoffs, and let's assume that Denver gets past the Mavericks and the Clippers get past the Thunder. Nuggets Clippers 7 games.
It's going to be a dogfight.
How do the Nuggets get out of that series?
Well, if I remember from when we played them in the Pepsi Center, I mean, we would have the home court advantage for the way that the seating is right now.
Right.
It's going to require a lot of guarding on Kawhi and a lot of guarding on Paul George, but it's also how can you match Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench. So it's going to be a matter of how Jeremiah Grant can step up, how Michael Porter Jr. can step up, especially what he's been doing. Everybody loves what Michael Porter Jr. is doing. I hope you guys have been seeing what he's been doing coming off the bench, dropping 23. We put him midway. I mean, I think the whole goal is that Mike Malone is doing is that we're trying to work him in so that that he has enough juice come playoff time so that he could be a starter, be mixed in with Jamal Murray and Jokic so that they can have that little rotation ball. Once that happens, then you have Gary Harris, Will Barton on the wing, Jeremiah Grant, step up top of the key, Torrey Craig playing excellent defense. His defense has improved.
But are all of these players going to play in the playoffs?
It's the rotation. That's the thing about Mike Malone's system, that we're going to keep rotating, and it's going to be a matter of we're going to put this guy on you. How are you going to stop him? Because it's like a chess match. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And look, I'm all for long rotations in the playoffs.
Ducking and dodging.
Something I would much rather like to have is a long rotation versus a short rotation. But my thing is, I think the reason why you see shorter rotations in the playoffs is because that means you need less people to be on their A game. And that's, look, whenever you have 11 players, like the leashes are really short in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If you ain't playing, if you make an error on one possession, yanking you.
You're right.
So look, I don't know exactly. I mean, you might remember what Malone last year, how many guys would he run in a normal playoff game?
Man, if I can remember correctly,
let me pull it up, but yeah.
There were times where I remember Jokic and Murray. I know Jokic logged a lot of minutes in the postseason because we needed him and we needed Jamal Murray. There were times I think maybe Torrey Craig got 15, 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 10 minutes, because usually we would yank some of our guys, if they weren't performing up to code and stuff like that.
So okay, the same starting five: Murray, Harris, Millsap, Torrey Craig, Jokic. Pretty much, Monty Morris did not really play too much. Malik Beasley, who's not in the rotation this year,
right?
Instead, it would be Jeremy Grant. He's not there this year. Millsap's probably not going to be in the rotation this year.
Yeah, he's been on and off this year with injuries, and he's a little bit older. He's not the old Paul Millsap.
Look, you played. The Nuggets played 9 guys. About 12 minutes a game at least. Jokic played 42 minutes a game.
Right, he logged the most minutes.
He's going to have to drag this Denver team forward. That's my concern. I think he's really going to have to drag it, and he's a great player. I love Nikola Jokic, and I have no doubt that he could do that. But here's my concern about Denver. Go back to 2014, 2015.
But we weren't even in the playoffs.
I'm not talking about Denver. I'm comparing them to, think of 2014, 2015 Atlanta Hawks. I think they're mirroring that so much. They're going to win 60 games in the regular season. Have a
60,
maybe
they got to go 22-5 to win 60 games. That's possible.
Possible, but let's just say they're going to win 55 games or more. They'll get a 1 or 2 seed, go to the playoffs, and you they have one good star and they have a lot of good pieces. But in the end, it's just not enough because you need stars in the playoffs.
My ear is ringing when you say one star because what about Jamal Murray? What about Blue Arrow? It's like you guys are disrespecting one of the league's most emerging point guards in the league.
I think we cannot throw the word star around like it's like everybody's
You're
a star.
You're throwing star around very loosely.
But I mean, Jamal Murray, when he's hot, he's if not one of the best.
He plays well with Jokic. That series last year against Portland, he was very good with Jokic. I give you that. But like I said, Jamal Murray to me is not a star yet, and I need more stars than one guy and a bunch of role players and Jamal Murray. Because that's what I see with Denver. And it works in the regular season, but the playoffs are a different animal.
I think what Denver ran into last year is Denver's not the team that's going to blow you out.
That is true, Jeremy.
And I think because they didn't do that with San Antonio last year, that hurt them in their second series against the Blazers.
But how many times do I have to tell people that was our first playoff series in 6 years? That roster wasn't even the same as it was now. We're just getting started.
Okay.
It's our time.
I don't know because it's until he retires, it's LeBron's time. It'll always be Kawhi's time right now.
LeBron has
it's
never
too
had,
crowded for me for
LeBron
Denver to
has
break through.
never had a player better than Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is the most talented teammate LeBron has ever had.
Comparing him to D Wade and Kyrie.
Yes.
D Wade was
Yes.
on his way down when LeBron got there.
Anthony
We didn't
Davis
know it
has not
yet,
even hit
but
his
that's what
prime
happened.
yet. Anthony Davis is entering his prime. LeBron James has never had a star right next to him in his prime like he has been Anthony Davis.
And we usually we look to have shooters around LeBron. LeBron shooting now is a lot different than LeBron shooting in 2011.
That is true.
You can rely on LeBron now to be a very good shooter. And so I think that's going to be a big key.
I just think when it comes to the playoffs, it's a different brand of basketball in the game, and it comes down to hero ball.
You just said the ringing word, Jeremy. It's a different brand. LeBron, yes, we already know what he can do.
It's
in
a
the
different
playoffs.
brand. Denver's better in the
but-
regular season than they are in the playoffs.
But here's my point though. This is obviously the Lakers are gonna make the playoffs, but LeBron James is going to play Western Conference playoff basketball.
It's the first time he's done that. Yes.
The Wild Wild West. We don't know what's gonna happen. Anything is possible when it is in Western Conference basketball.
If you told well, let's put a number on this. Okay. 0 to 100 percentage wise. The team that comes out of the West is from Los Angeles. 0 to 50%, like 0 to 100%.
I'm gonna say 85%.
I think it's like 95%.
I think it's at least 80, 85. The only reason I say that is because I still believe in Denver, and I still look at other teams, potentially like the team that's creeping up in the Northwest Division, the Utah Jazz. Because
Jazz are not there
I
yet.
think the only team that could challenge the Lakers and Clippers, even though I do not like how they're built, like, again, I fall back on stars. It's the Houston Rockets.
No, absolutely not. I'm sorry, Jeremy, you're dancing, but we all know James Harden doesn't play no defense. He's cold.
Like it or not,
playoff basketball.
Okay.
Like it or not,
They have no depth. Mike D'Antoni 6 seconds or less just doesn't work.
the Houston Rockets know how to get to the
It's not
conference.
6
He knows
seconds
how to
or
get
less.
to the conference finals. I think James Harden can drag you to the conference finals, and there's many times he almost beat that Warriors team with Chris Paul as his sidekick. Now he's got Russell Westbrook as his sidekick. And I think they're playing a lot better together
No
than
depth.
many would have thought. It really surprised me.
Here's the thing.
There's not enough depth, though. I mean, I was mad when you traded Clint Capella. That was a great piece that you guys had. For Robert Covington, I don't know.
cannot write these Rockets off just yet.
I'm just not sold because
You
we all know
cannot
what James
write
Harden is in the
them
playoffs.
off just yet.
Jeremy, you're
Just
a Rockets fan.
yet.
You know what James Harden's capable of in the playoffs.
Just
2 points against
yet.
the Spurs 3 years ago.
Just yet. You cannot write these Rockets off just
I need to see
yet.
more. I just need to see
Exactly. You have not seen this iteration of the Rockets yet. That's the thing. They're running a very different brand of basketball than they did in the beginning of the season. They are historically better on offense without Clint Capella on the floor this season. What did they do? They sent Clint Capella to Atlanta. They got someone who is a much better fit for the style of play they're going to do. We've seen 4 games of this so far. Mm-hmm. What have we seen in these 4 games?
A win against the Lakers.
A win against the Lakers on the road.
True.
A loss against the Suns, where you didn't have Russell Westbrook or Eric Gordon. You got a win against the Jazz. You lost against the Jazz at home on a shot that's very lucky to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And you beat the Celtics. So far, I like what I've seen. 2-2, yes, but could easily be 3-1, 4-0, possibly.
I could say about Clint Capella as well. I want to touch on him because I know everybody thinks that it was a bad trade for them. I think the Rockets...
Who was the liability in the playoffs?
That's what I was about to go on.
Harden.
I think they saw that Clint Capella in the playoffs is kind of neutralized. And I think, okay, if Clint Capella is getting a contract, is it not far off to say he's going to want $30 million plus a year for what he does?
I mean, he's got a long time to get his deal.
Do the Rockets, is that in the Rockets' best interest with Harden and Westbrook on fat contracts to give another fat contract to Clint Capella?
But that
wouldn't work.
Wasn't even the issue. He was on the books for another 3-4 years. They gave him the contract. They gave him the $15 million a year contract.
And I think that they would rather have that off their books and get something else that would help them in the playoffs than Clint Capella.
Definitely what they're doing makes a lot more sense for them. And I will, look, I'm not saying the Rockets are going to win a championship. They're not going to win a championship.
No.
I'll say it right here. They will not win the championship. But you cannot write them off just yet.
So you can't write off the Rockets, but you're okay to write off my Nuggets, even though we have a deeper bench and enough rotation
But
players
that's not what the playoffs are about. The playoffs is really about, do you have the best 8-9 guys?
I'm probably going to get 70 points a game out of Westbrook and Harden in the playoffs.
And that might be enough. And then you have Eric Gordon and
PJ Tucker,
Covington, PJ, Daniel House to get
They
the
don't
other
have
30
they don't have
and 40.
it's not like they have scrubs around those two guys.
no disrespect, but it's just, I touch back to just as well the coaching style. It's just we all know Mike D'Antoni's history in the playoffs. He just can't get it done.
Who has more of a chance to beat the Clippers in a 7-game series, Nuggets or Rockets?
I'm still giving it to Denver. Like I said, I think I don't want to just back this off just of fandom, but I just look at it. It's just pound for pound. You look at the depth and the rotation pieces. Now, I will admit though, the one thing that does concern me with Denver, and I didn't touch much on it, is that we are inconsistent, and we're consistent at Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray having hot and cold nights. If we get, for example, like them playing at their best throughout this second half of the season, if we see Murray put up 30 and we see Jokic put up a triple-double or 25-20, a double-double, I think you can see them at their very best. And they've beaten the very best that the NBA has to offer this year. There were some close games against the Mavericks. There's been some ferocious fights that we've had with the Clippers and, some other pretty good teams. We had some, I'll admit though, the game against the Rockets, we should have lost in my opinion, but like something was different about that time.
The game after the Kobe game?
Yeah.
Are the Nuggets are seeded right now to play the Mavericks, right, in the first round?
It'll be a dogfight.
Don't even know if they're winning that series. That's where I stand with Denver. Don't even know, because Luka Doncic to me seems like the kind of guy who I think he's capable of putting up like 35 points per game in the playoffs and doing everything else he does and getting Kristaps involved. I don't think we should write off. I'm not saying Denver's winning a championship. They're not. They're not going to a conference championship. But to beat Denver in the first round, I see it, because like you said, Denver does not blow teams out.
We do play a lot of close ball.
Here's my thing with Denver. Denver's just not battle-tested yet. I don't think they're battle-tested.
Battle-tested.
I don't think they're battle-tested.
I remember, even though like the Lakers have come into the Pepsi Center and beaten us, I remember we beat them handily when we took them at the Staples Center.
Mm-hmm. 128-104, December 22nd.
Yes. We beat the Clippers. I mean, we beat the Bucks. We beat the Miami Heat. I feel like what else is there for us to do? We've proven that we can play against the best.
Do it in the playoffs.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Like I said, I think the experience of last year, knowing how close we were, I think that's going to be that extra step.
Might I add that the Lakers did not play that game with LeBron. LeBron did not play that game.
You grab the best players that you can and run out on the court.
Listen right now.
That's true.
Excuses.
That's true.
LeBron and Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray.
I take LeBron.
Those names are so far away from each other, it's not even funny.
Just wait.
I think it's closer than people generally see it. But
thank you.
I mean, it's LeBron and AD.
No, I think Jokic can hang with AD's star power, maybe, but
Murray can't.
Jamal Murray just can't hold a candle. Like you said, he just can't.
But like I said, it's more consistency. We know what Jamal Murray at his peak can do. He can drop 30 on your head, give you that little blue arrow.
But I've seen LeBron James make 9 finals in a row.
That is true.
And I understand it was the East, but he still has proven it.
Yeah, I just like, for me, the West is a gauntlet. The West is nothing close. Like, that's the best way to describe it. It's a total gauntlet. You really have absolutely no idea where it could go. But like we mentioned earlier, what's the chance that the Staples Center is hosting finals games in June? 85, 90%.
My hope is, though, knowing how close Denver is, because I feel like the only way the Nuggets can really run the table and really take this thing, in my opinion, is if we get that number 1 seed. If we get home court advantage throughout the playoffs, then the NBA, the road to the NBA Finals and to the Western Conference Championship must come through the Pepsi Center.
I will also say
that they lost in Game 7 last year.
If we're looking at the matchups that Nikola Jokic, because I'm going to focus on him because he often runs through him. Look at his matchups against the Clippers and Lakers, Dwight Howard and Montrezl Harrell. Okay, Dwight Howard has had a career bounce back. Like, that's a great story, and I think he could hang on defense against Jokic.
Yeah.
Montrezl Harrell is an animal on defense.
Yeah.
He will hound Nikola Jokic, and I know Jokic will get his because that's what star players do. But like we said about the East, Giannis got neutralized. So at that point, really anybody can get neutralized.
Yeah.
But last year's postseason, it was hard to neutralize Jokic. Mr. Triple-double almost every night.
I mean, look, here's my thing.
30,
20, 10.
against Enes
Here's
Kanter.
my thing with the West. I'm gonna try to wrap this up because we're getting close to that time where we got to close it out. But this is the way I see it. I think if we get like a flow chart here, if it comes down to the Lakers versus the Clippers, I think the Lakers would win because I do think that home court advantage will matter in the end. However, I do think there are teams that can knock the Lakers out. I do think that the Rockets have a chance. I do think the Jazz have a chance. I'll even give it. I think the Nuggets have a chance.
Thank you.
I don't think they have a good chance. I think they have a chance. I don't think any of those teams have a really good chance. I think that I think no more than 30% that any of those teams beat the Lakers. Lakers should get out of the West. There's no, they should. And then also the Clippers. I think the Clippers can get knocked out by some of these teams. I think that the Rockets have a really good chance. I think the Rockets match up way better than any other team. The Rockets are the one team the Clippers do not want to play in the playoffs. They do not.
That's true.
They do not want to match up with
Patrick
them.
Beverley's going to get cooking legs again if he guards up James Harden.
He's going to guard Russ though. He's going to guard Russ though.
He
always gets Russ.
Russ and Patrick Beverley are like
Kawhi will get Harden.
Yeah.
Kawhi will get Harden. But I think the Rockets match up really well. They've played up to their competition. Every team that's ahead of them in the standings, they've either tied the season series against or won. They have the pieces that can do it. That's why you don't write them off just yet. And I think the Jazz are just a step behind. But they
do have enough. Donovan Mitchell's
they
playing
do have enough.
an all-star level.
They do have enough, and that's why I think like if the Jazz they beat the Rockets in 7 in the first round, they can go and play the Lakers and push them to 7 as well.
I'm just saying this though, Jeremy. How are you going to stop Rudy Gobert on defense? The Stifle Tower. How are you going to guard up against Mike Conley?
They did that without James Harden and Russell Westbrook. They've done that. They've proven that.
I think Utah's very...
No Clint, no... They played a couple weeks ago. It was the game after the Denver game. No Clint, no Russ, no James. They went out and they beat the Jazz in Salt Lake.
I think Utah is Utah's very Denver-ish to me.
I would agree.
And I would say Denver's a better regular season team, but Utah, like I said, with stars, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and then Bogdanovich is a really good piece to have. And a lights-out shooter. Mike Conley's on that team.
The Jazz are also going to be a team that not a lot of people want to play.
No, that's a team that that's what I'm saying. That's a scary team that you don't want to play.
Oklahoma City also not a team you want to play.
The Thunder,
No.
after their postseason blunders, we have
That's
Chris
a totally
Paul.
different team. Chris Paul's made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander,
Shai is
very
great.
good player. Steven
Dennis
Adams,
Schroeder.
a bully.
Dennis Schroeder's been
Danilo
in the conference
Gallinari, like
They
got players.
have. It's a totally different team.
Yeah, and they've exceeded
The
their
Thunder,
expectations.
I expected them to tank this year, and I was hoping that Chris Paul would get out and maybe go to a contender.
There's a lot.
Team.
There's a lot that can go on, but this is what I'll say. I'll say there's a lot of challenges, and I think if the Clippers and Lakers aren't at their A game, watch out, because one of these teams will be more than happy to take your spot in the conference finals.
Absolutely.
And if they do meet in the conference finals, I like the Lakers. If one of those teams is knocked out, I doubt both of them would be knocked out. But if one of those teams is knocked out, I like the other. That's how it is.
Yeah. All right.
And that's, I guess, where we'll cap it off. We definitely have a lot more basketball talk in us for the second half of the HTF season. So thank you, Nick and Okelo, for coming on to the podcast today. Tomorrow, you can check out 2 episodes of the podcast. We have Hitting the Crew with Miss China Davis coming out tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow evening, the first episode of the 3rd HTF podcast, part of the HTF podcast network. Johnny Jackson is heading out with our brand new baseball-centered podcast called Take Me Out to the Podcast, so be on the lookout for that as well. Monday is our very special episode commemorating 10 seasons of Hitting the Field. special throwback episode. A lot of old, a lot of new. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So be sure to check into that noon on Monday. Also be sure to check out us on Apple Podcasts with the Hitting the Field podcast, Hitting the Crew podcast, and soon to be Take Me Out to the podcast. And be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hitting the Field from inside the Nicholson School of Communication and Media at the University of Central Florida. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real.